With the Republican-controlled White House and Senate, how do you anticipate your job working for Rhode Islanders will change?
Well, I don't think it'll change dramatically. The basic rule of the Senate, it takes 60 votes to pass substantive legislation, so it will have to be bipartisan by definition. And we're going to work closely with our colleagues as we have in the past. One of the nice things about serving on the Armed Services Committee, it has a tradition of bipartisanship, and that tradition will continue. And we'll do our best for the state. We work hard every day and try to work harder the next day.
Well, a lot of the stuff that I really had hoped to do, things like putting Social Security and Medicare on a permanently sound footing, taking some of the corruption out of the tax code, finding a pathway to climate safety, cleaning up the dark money in our politics and the mischief at the Supreme Court. I think pretty much all of that is by the boards with Republican control in Washington. I think those are all important things, and I'm going to keep fighting for them. But I think now, in a very different way, we've got to be extremely watchful about corruption and about trying to defend taxpayers and the public against what could be a massive influx of corruption. I don't think that the billionaires who put Trump in the Oval Office are likely to be there for public-spirited reasons. I think they're there for purposes of plunder, and we're going to have to be very aggressive about making sure that that does not happen.
What do you think Democrats need to do differently moving forward from this election?
A win.
But how?
I think each election is a little bit different. I shared my thoughts all along with the Biden and then the Harris campaign, and I'm not a pundit.
Well, I think we have to be much more aggressive in getting the message out of what we've accomplished. Again, this is an example of President Biden's leadership getting the bipartisan infrastructure bill through, and it was bipartisan. But now you're seeing really tangible benefits. Men and women working, vessels that are the future, not the past, being produced. And we have to get that message out more and more. And that's a challenge.
When it comes to election results, are you concerned it will impact funding for the Washington Bridge?
Well, I talked to the Senate, both the Congressional Delegation, about that earlier today, and they have a plan to make sure that those dollars stay that are committed, stay committed to the Washington Bridge.
This fall, 2 different federal grants, one for $95 million and another for $135 million, were awarded to the Ocean State to pay for the bridge. Is there any concerns about any of that changing?
Those grants have been made, and we're going to do all we can to ensure that they are committed as well as made, and that we will have the money, if not in hand, then we'll have the money that cannot be revoked.
But with no final price tag, there's a possibility more money will be needed. Do you think there's going to be an impact with this new administration?
I did very well in the last Trump administration with highway grants. Secretary Chow was very good to work with. We got the biggest grants we'd ever gotten through her. So I think we're going to continue to seek additional funding on the Washington Bridge. Right now there is $220 million banked for the bridge, and we don't even have a contractor and a plan. So we've done our job in the delegation to put the money in place, and we're going to continue to do that, and I'm confident that we will be able to succeed at that.
What about offshore wind? That's been a big issue, something that's funded really heavily here in New England overall, but President Trump said that he's going to do away with it on day one.
Well, it's hard to do away with things on day one, but if his intent is to undermine offshore wind, then he's making a mistake both economically and also environmentally. We have to do all we can. We're sitting in November with 70 degrees, enjoying probably the warmest weather we've had. That's not an aberration, that's climate change at work. And if we don't deal with it smartly, like using wind energy, then not only we will regret it, but the next generation of Americans will inherit a huge problem.
On offshore wind, as I told the folks here, this is an offshore wind service boat right behind us. And we need to make sure that those jobs, both for offshore wind and for service boats and for the whole industry, stay here in Rhode Island. And I'm convinced that we'll be able to develop bipartisan support for the offshore wind project so that the Trump administration will be less antagonistic to this industry.